Have you ever wondered what Hollywood looked like before the rules kicked in? Imagine a time when the screen was ruled by ruthless gangsters, lawless cities, and dangerous ambition, when crime wasn't just punished, but celebrated. These were movies so bold, so raw, and so thrilling that even today, their influence can be felt in every gangster story that followed. Welcome to the world of pre-code Hollywood, a world where danger was exciting, the stakes were high, and sometimes the bad guys got to win. Little Caesar, 1931. If you want to understand how Hollywood first transformed real-life gangsters into silver screen legends, you have to start with Little Caesar. This isn't just another old black and white movie. It's the birthplace of the cinematic gangster as we know it. Edward G. Robinson stars as Rico Bandello, a small-time hood with big-time ambitions. The film tracks Rico's meteoric rise from penny-ante stick-up artist to ruthless underworld boss. But Little Caesar does more than just tell the story of a bad man. It gives him charisma, ambition, and an almost tragic sense of destiny. Rico is no simple villain. He's hungry, resourceful, and frighteningly determined. The world around him is bleak and filled with desperation. But the camera never shies away from his crimes. In fact, it seems almost fascinating, lingering as he orchestrates heists, double-crosses, and takes down anyone in his path. The violence is brisk and unfiltered, but the movie's real power comes from Robinson's performance. He made Rico magnetic. Audiences were drawn to him even as he descended into paranoia and ruin. When the end comes for Rico, it's not with handcuffs, but with a hail of bullets crying out, "Mother of mercy, is this the end of Rico?" Even as the production code would soon demand that crime never pay, Little Caesar made sure you saw the thrills and dangers before the fall. It's a film that doesn't just depict crime, it mythologizes it, planting the seeds for every gangster film that would follow. The Public Enemy, 1931. If Little Caesar was the film that showed gangsters could be stars, The Public Enemy was the one that made them pop culture icons. James Cagney's performance as Tom Powers is raw, electric, and, let's be honest, downright fun to watch. The film opens on the gritty streets of Prohibition-era Chicago, where two kids, Tom and Matt, start as petty thieves and quickly spiral into the world of organized crime. What sets The Public Enemy apart is how much it revels in the gangster lifestyle. Cagney's Tom is brash, reckless, and fearless. He lives large, drinks hard, and most memorably shoves a grapefruit in Mae Clark's face, a moment that's still shocking in its boldness. Director William Wellman pulls no punches in showing the violence and chaos of the gangster world, but he also can't help but make it look exciting. Yet, beneath the bravado, there's an undercurrent of tragedy. Tom's relationship with his family is always tense. He's drawn toward destruction, unable to escape the cycle of violence that built his fortune. The ending, one of the most famous in classic cinema, reminds us that while crime might look alluring, it comes with a cost. But pre-code Hollywood wasn't interested in neat morality. It wanted to show us the ride, with all its glamour and danger. And The Public Enemy delivers that ride at full speed. Scarface, 1932. Scarface isn't just a gangster movie. It's a cinematic declaration of war on respectability. Directed by Howard Hawks and produced by Howard Hughes, this film takes the real-life story of Al Capone and dials it up to 11. Paul Mooney plays Tony Camonte, a violent, ambitious thug who cuts down everyone in his way to become Chicago's most feared mob boss. From the moment the film starts, you know you're in for something special. The machine guns roar, the body count rises, and Tony seems to have no limits. What makes Scarface so remarkable is how unashamed it is in glorifying Tony's lifestyle. The film is filled with fast cars, expensive suits, wild parties, and a sense of danger that's almost intoxicating. Even the iconic X motif, appearing wherever death is near, turns violence into visual poetry. But Scarface isn't just about blood and bullets. It's also a story about obsession and downfall. Tony's fixation on power and his complicated feelings toward his sister drive him to self-destruction. The film doesn't moralize so much as it marvels. Critics and censors were scandalized. They demanded reshoots and a tacked-on message condemning crime. But audiences saw the truth. This was the most exciting thing Hollywood had ever put on screen. Scarface dares to ask, what if the villain is the most compelling person in the room? And for 2 hours, the answer is yes. The Doorway to Hell, 1930. Before Cagney and Robinson became synonymous with gangster cinema, there was The Doorway to Hell. Lou Ayres stars as Louis Riccardo, a young hoodlum who quickly rises to become the kingpin of Chicago's underworld. But unlike later gangster films, The Doorway to Hell spends almost as much time showing Louis trying to escape the life as it does his rise through the ranks. What makes this film stand out is its tragic inevitability. Louis tries to retire, get married, and leave the violence behind. But the criminal world isn't so easy to abandon. Friends turn into enemies, betrayal lurks around every corner, and the past refuses to let go. The film is filled with smoky nightclubs, gunfights, and the kind of hard-boiled dialogue that would define the genre. It's also notable for an early appearance by James Cagney, who oozes charisma, even in a supporting role. The glamour of crime is always paired with the threat of downfall. Yet in the pre-code era, the story doesn't feel like a sermon. Instead, it feels like an urban myth, a tale of ambition, risk, and heartbreak. The Doorway to Hell isn't just the criminal underworld. It's the seductive promise that there's always one more score, one last chance to come out on top. For audiences, it was a glimpse into a world both thrilling and terrifying. Smart Money, 1931. If you ever wanted to see the two titans of early gangster cinema, Edward G. Robinson and James Cagney, share the screen, Smart Money is your answer. The story follows Nick Venizelos, a small-town barber with a gift for gambling, who dreams of making it big in the city. Robinson plays Nick with his trademark confidence, blending charm, wit, and ruthless ambition. The film is less about gunfights and more about the hustle. Nick rises in the world of illegal gambling, outsmarting rivals and making powerful friends. But every high roller knows that luck can turn at any moment. Cagney, in a supporting role, adds an edge to the story, showing how easy it is to slide from card games to crime. Smart Money is a celebration of cleverness and ambition. The stakes are high and the risks are real, but the film never forgets the excitement of the game. As Nick's empire grows, so does the sense of danger. Every victory brings new enemies. The film's pacing is sharp, the dialogue is snappy, and the world it creates is one where fortune favors the bold, at least until the odds run out. In pre-code Hollywood, even losing big could look like a good time. The Big House, 1930. While not strictly a gangster movie, The Big House deserves its spot for showing the other side of the crime equation, life behind bars. Starring Chester Morris and Wallace Beery, the film plunges us into a sprawling prison teeming with tension, alliances, and the constant threat of violence. What's striking about The Big House is how sympathetic it is to its criminal characters. The convicts are given depth and humanity, their struggles and dreams laid bare. The film doesn't just use the prison as a backdrop, it makes it a character in its own right, with claustrophobic corridors, echoing footsteps, and the looming threat of riot. The drama builds to a climactic breakout, and the tension is palpable. At a time when movies were supposed to uphold law and order, The Big House dared to suggest that criminals were more than just villains. They were people shaped by circumstance, sometimes more likable than the authorities keeping them locked up. Audiences were captivated by this grittier, more honest take on crime and punishment. It's no surprise that later prison movies would follow its template, but none with quite the same raw edge as this pre-code classic. Quick Millions, 1931. Ambition is at the heart of every great gangster film, and Quick Millions puts that ambition front and center. Spencer Tracy stars as Bugs Raymond, a truck driver who sees opportunity not in honest labor, but in running a protection racket. With sharp instincts and a relentless drive, Bugs builds an empire out of intimidation, bribery, and violence. What's fascinating about Quick Millions is how much it equates crime with American entrepreneurship. Bugs is portrayed not just as a thug, but as a businessman, ruthless, clever, and always looking for the next angle. The film doesn't shy away from the brutal realities of his world, but it also can't help but admire his tenacity. Bugs is surrounded by corrupt politicians, double-dealing partners, and beautiful women, all drawn to his power. The movie is filled with crisp dialogue, tense showdowns, and the ever-present threat of betrayal, yet it's also laced with a dark sense of humor and an understanding of the price that comes with playing the game. Quick Millions shows the criminal underworld as a place where ambition can take you to the top, but where loyalty and trust are always in short supply. City Streets, 1931. City Streets is a gangster romance with a hard edge, starring Gary Cooper and Sylvia Sidney. Cooper plays the Kid, a carnival worker pulled into the bootlegging business by his love for Nan, whose father is a big-time mobster. Unlike other gangster films that focus purely on crime, City Streets weaves its story around love, loyalty, and the tough choices people make when caught between two worlds. Director Ruben Mamoulian brings a visual flair to the story, with shadows and neon lights casting a dreamlike haze over the city's underbelly. The film gives us a look at both the thrills and the costs of living on the edge. The Kid is torn. He wants a better life with Nan, but the pull of the underworld is too strong. The film doesn't shy away from the violence and betrayal that come with the territory. Instead, it uses them to heighten the romance and the sense of danger. City Streets is stylish, suspenseful, and for its time, surprisingly modern. It's a reminder that crime stories are always more compelling when they're about people as much as power. The Fingerpoints, 1931. The Fingerpoints takes a different approach to the world of crime, focusing on the men who cover it for the newspapers. Richard Barthelmess stars as Breckenridge Lee, a young reporter who quickly finds himself entangled with the city's criminal elite. The film is a cautionary tale about the corrupting influence of easy money and the dangers of getting too close to the story. What makes The Fingerpoints stand out is its exploration of the blurred line between observer and participant. Breckenridge starts out idealistic, but the temptations of the underworld are hard to resist. As he gets deeper into the mob's pocket, the risks multiply and the threats become deadly real. The film is filled with sharp dialogue, tense newsroom scenes, and the ever-present menace of the city's most powerful mobsters. It's not just a story about crime, it's a story about compromise, ambition, and the price of success. The Fingerpoints reminds us that in the pre-code era, even the supposed good guys weren't immune to the pull of the underworld. Jacques' Night Nurse, 1931. On the surface, Night Nurse seems like a hospital drama, but it's really a gritty crime film in disguise. Barbara Stanwyck stars as Laura Hart, a nurse who stumbles upon a web of corruption and violence involving the wealthy family she cares for. Clark Gable, in an early role, plays the sinister chauffeur who will stop at nothing to protect the household's dark secrets. What sets Night Nurse apart is its willingness to expose the rot beneath society's surface. The hospital is a microcosm of the city, filled with danger, moral ambiguity, and desperate people willing to do whatever it takes to survive. Stanwyck's Laura is tough, resourceful, and unafraid to stand up to powerful men, qualities that were rare for female characters at the time. The film blends suspense, humor, and social commentary, using crime as a lens to examine class, privilege, and justice. Night Nurse is a reminder that in the pre-code era, even stories set far from the mean streets could be just as raw, just as thrilling, and just as willing to glorify rebellion against authority. 3 on a Match, 1932. 3 on a Match is the story of 3 women whose lives diverge and intersect in unexpected, often dangerous ways. Starring Joan Blondell, Anne Dvorak, and Bette Davis, the film mixes melodrama with gangster thrills, especially in its depiction of a kidnapping plot that draws one of the women deep into the criminal underworld. The movie is famous for its breakneck pacing and willingness to tackle taboo topics. The criminal element isn't just a backdrop, it's an ever-present threat, shaping the fates of the characters. Humphrey Bogart, in an early role, plays a menacing gangster, giving audiences a taste of the roles that would soon define his career. What makes 3 on a Match so compelling is how it shows crime as both a trap and a ticket to excitement. The world of Gangsters is alluring, filled with fast money and forbidden thrills, but the price is high, and the film doesn't shy away from the toll it takes. Still, the pre-code era allowed these stories to unfold with more nuance, ambiguity, and, yes, a little bit of glamour than would be possible just a few years later. The Beast of the City, 1932. Intended as a cautionary tale, The Beast of the City ended up delivering one of the most action-packed, unapologetically violent crime stories of the pre-code era. Walter Houston stars as a tough police captain who becomes obsessed with taking down the city's criminal syndicate. Joan Harlow co-stars as a femme fatale whose presence only amps up the tension. What's remarkable about The Beast of the City is how much it celebrates the excitement of the fight against crime. Shootouts, chases, and daring raids are depicted with a sense of energy and spectacle. Even though the film tries to end on a moral note, it can't help but make the battle feel thrilling. The lines between law and crime blur. Sometimes the police are just as relentless and ruthless as the mobsters they chase. The movie's pacing is relentless, never letting the audience catch its breath. In true pre-code fashion, the film understands that for many moviegoers, the allure of danger was impossible to resist. I Am a Fugitive from a Chain Gang, 1932. This is the story of a man made into a criminal by an unjust system. Paul Mooney plays James Allen, a World War I veteran whose brush with poverty lands him on a chain gang. The film pulls no punches in depicting the brutality of the prison system and the desperation of those trapped within it. What makes I Am a Fugitive from a Chain Gang so subversive is its sympathy for the fugitive. Allen is no hardened criminal. He's a victim of circumstance, struggling to survive in a world that refuses to give him a second chance. His escape is tense and heartbreaking, and his quest for freedom puts him on the wrong side of the law, even as the audience roots for him. The film's realism and social critique were groundbreaking. But what really made it scandalous was its suggestion that the true criminals might be those in power. In pre-code Hollywood, it was possible for a film to make you cheer for a man on the run, not because he was evil, but because the world had given him no other choice. Law and Order, 1932. On its surface, Law and Order is a Western, but it's infused with the same fascination with crime and justice that fueled the gangster genre. Walter Houston stars as Frame Johnson, a lawman whose efforts to clean up Tombstone come with a body count and a moral cost. What sets this film apart is its unsparing depiction of violence and its refusal to draw clear lines between good and evil. The heroes and villains are often indistinguishable. Everyone is caught in a cycle of revenge and retribution. The movie's gritty tone, stark cinematography, and sense of fatalism make it feel more like a gangster film than a traditional Western. Law and Order glorifies the myth of the gunfighter, but it also questions what it really means to be a hero in a world where the law is just another weapon. The film's influence can be seen in later, more complex Westerns, but in the pre-code era it was radical, a story where justice and violence walked hand in hand. The Mouthpiece, 1932. Warren Williams stars in The Mouthpiece, a film that turns the courtroom into another kind of battlefield. He plays Vince Day, a brilliant prosecutor who, after a crisis of conscience, switches sides and becomes a defense attorney for the city's most notorious criminals. What makes The Mouthpiece fascinating is how it blurs the line between right and wrong. Day is slick, smart, and almost impossible not to root for, even as he bends the law to keep gangsters out of jail. The film delights in his clever tricks, sharp cross-examinations, and ability to outwit both the police and his clients. As Day's reputation grows, so does his wealth and influence, and the film makes no apologies for showing the perks of life on the edge of legality. The Mouthpiece is witty, fast-paced, and packed with the kind of snappy dialogue that defined the era. By the time the production code came down hard, movies like this, where the hero could win by cheating the system, were a thing of the past. And there you have it. 15 unforgettable films from a time when Hollywood didn't just flirt with danger, it embraced it. The pre-code era was a brief but blazing moment that changed cinema forever, showing us that even in the darkest corners of the city, there's a story worth telling. If you enjoyed this journey through classic crime and glamour, don't forget to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more deep dives into movie history. Until next time, keep your eyes on the screen and watch out for the shadows, because in Hollywood, you never know who might be watching.